The one element that makes life on Earth possible is the sun. Without it, our atmosphere would have a difficult time forming, all of our water would freeze, and we would be unable to withstand the extreme cold. But what if we were no longer able to rely on this incredibly old source of heat? Welcome to Z. And today we're responding to the astounding query, could we endure the sun going out? Do you require answers to the important queries? So why not join Z to see more videos like this one and ring the bell for more inspiring material? We will eventually lose the sun, it is a given. The sun will eventually run out of hydrogen since it has a limited lifespan like all other stars. This will cause it to change into a red behemoth that will quickly expand and form an exterior envelope. The outer planets and their moons will become much warmer as a result of this envelope, which will also enclose all of the inner planets, although it won't endure. The envelope will eventually vanish as well, leaving us with nothing more than a white dwarf. White dwarfs, which are the dead cores of stars, have incredibly lengthy lifespans. They still emit a lot of heat even when they aren't fusing hydrogen anymore. The cosmos is too young for any black dwarfs to have formed, however it is believed that white dwarfs will eventually fade into black dwarfs. If humanity are still alive when the sun dies in 5 billion years, we'll need to adjust to a heat source that is much less powerful. However, in order to avoid being burned up, humans would first need to leave Earth and travel to one of the outer moons, such as Titan or Europa. But even if we had to orbit the star in a spacecraft, the star at the center of the solar system would still emit enough heat to keep us alive for billions of years. But what if the sun suddenly disappeared in a split second? First of all, it would take us around 8 minutes to realize that something had occurred. Since it takes this long for light to reach Earth from the sun, we would still have more daylight than Mercury or Venus, but less than Jupiter. Even Pluto is only a maximum of 6 light hours away, which is still much better than 8 minutes. But we wouldn't instantaneously freeze. There would be some heat left over from the sun that would last for a few weeks. There are 2 main sources of heat transfer from the interior of the Earth to the surface. The first is primordial heat left over from the planet's genesis in the Earth's core. The second type of heat is radiogenic heat, which is brought on by radioactive decay in the crust and mantle. The warmth of the sun, on the other hand, dwarfs the heat that rises to the surface. We will still be in serious trouble because it only produces around 1 in 10,000th of the heat that the sun does. We would enter complete darkness after the initial 8 minutes. We wouldn't be able to view the moon because the other bodies in the solar system are only visible to us here due to sunlight reflecting off of them. We would be in complete darkness with no sense of day or night because although the moon would still be present, it would not emit any moonlight. All the other planets would eventually disappear from view, but humans would still be able to make out faraway stars in the sky. However, they are just too far away for us to receive any heat. Depending on estimates, the average global surface temperature would plummet to at least 0 degrees Fahrenheit within a few days, rendering much of the world uninhabitable. Sure, you could bundle up at home, but it would only be helpful while the temps were still low. They would eventually get down to roughly minus 400 degrees Fahrenheit. This is quite close to the temperature of absolute zero, or 0 Kelvin, which is minus 459.67 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature at which atoms cease to move is known as absolute zero. Due to those additional heat sources, Earth will never completely reach absolute zero, even with the sun gone. We would still have very little chance of surviving, though. We would have trouble breathing since even the atmosphere would freeze. The planet's surface's entire supply of liquid water would eventually freeze solid as well. However, it is feasible to endure extremely low temperatures. The International Space Station experiences temperatures as low as minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit on the side facing away from the sun, although still being significantly warmer than absolute zero. Engineers claim that despite the hot side's temperature reaching 250 degrees above zero, keeping the ISS warm is much more difficult than keeping it cool. However, we were still able to accomplish this. Insulation plus a large enough power source are all that are required to continue producing heat. Nuclear energy would likely be the best fuel source if the sun went out. We still have a long way to go in our efforts to harness nuclear fusion, the same process that fuels the sun. However, there are a lot of nuclear fission producers. Refueling for nuclear reactors is only necessary every 2 years, sporadically more frequently. The people who work at nuclear facilities would be in the best position to survive this cataclysm because we wouldn't have time to construct replacement nuclear infrastructure. A nuclear engineer has a good chance of surviving longer than other people since they will be needed to maintain the plant functioning and they will be the closest. You would still want a supply of food and water, though. This infrastructure simply couldn't be built without any forewarning. However, we would need to construct some habitats if we were given notice that the sun was about to disappear. In essence, these dwellings would be the same as those we'd need to construct if we were planning to settle on Mars. During the Martian winter, the surface temperature on Mars can drop to minus 220 degrees, and we are currently working on the technologies required to resist this. We would require a sealed, artificial setting where we could produce our own heat using nuclear energy, cultivate plants and food, and maintain a continuous flow of clean water and air. Fortunately, our water would just freeze instead of disappearing, so we could still get water by sending people out to collect ice. To do this, these individuals would require some really sophisticated clothing, basically spacesuits, but it would be feasible. As an alternative, we could create machines that would perform this for us. After all, a lot of robots have been sent to Mars that can withstand both the radiation and the extreme temperatures, and there would be a lot less radiation there if the sun didn't exist. Additionally, since we wouldn't be launching these robots into space, it would be far simpler to create them. The construction of a generation ship is another option. Even though it would be an artificial environment, we would not be bound to any one planet. Instead, we would be free to travel around space and perhaps look for another planet to call home. However, doing so would be more difficult than creating habitats on Earth because it would require giving up the little heat that Earth would still give. We might, however, have very strong cause to wish to leave Earth as soon as possible if the sun went out. Not only does the sun give us heat, but it truly is the center of our universe. Without the sun, the solar system would eventually become disorganized and out of balance. In the best-case scenario, Jupiter, the second most massive object in the solar system, would become its new center of gravity. However, this would create other issues. A planetary collision would be possible with all the planets speeding towards a new gravitational center, and it would not be anything we could predict. At least we could fly in the opposite direction, away from the planets, if we were operating a generation ship. However, there is also the possibility that the Earth would just be abandoned as a rogue planet. Rogue planets are lonesome celestial bodies that orbit the galactic center rather than a parent star, spending their entire existence in the deep space's frigid darkness. Earth may be drawn in by another star as a rogue planet, but it doesn't seem plausible that it would again land in the ideal, habitable zone. Even the possibility of Earth existing once twice is extremely remote. But if we stayed on it, we would at least have a little supply of natural heat. If they were in the right position at the right moment, a few individuals might survive, and millions might be able to adapt to this never-ending winter with enough preparation. And the question is, could we survive without the sun? How do you feel? Do you think we missed anything? Check out other additional ZE videos, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe or ring the bell to receive our most recent material.